the last one, she began to run, faster than she ever had before, toward the Heartwood. Chapter 13. Tilly tells the truth. Mona had never scurried so quickly. She followed the stream this way and that, all the way back up to the hotel. The moonlight glimmered off the water, showing her the way. She reached the tree with its huge canopy of branches and the tiny carved heart, just as the sun was beginning to awaken, stretching its rays across the forest. Mona didn't hesitate. She opened the door and dashed inside. There was no one in the lobby. The guests must still be sleeping, thought Mona, but the staff would already be up, eating their breakfast. And so she scampered down the stairs and burst into the kitchen where, as she expected, the staff were all gathered around the kitchen table. "I saw wolves!" cried Mona. Everyone stared. Tilly stopped fidgeting with her food, her mouth open in surprise. Mr. Heartwood looked at Mona stonily, but Miss Prickles smiled and said, "You're back, dearie!" "Now where in the forest did you—" started Mrs. Higgins. "Hush now at once," said Mr. Heartwood. "Miss Mona, please go to my office or take a seat. Your stories must wait. First we eat." "But Mr. Heartwood, Mrs. Higgins, Miss Prickles, you have to listen. I saw wolves, a whole pack of them." "Hush, I say." Mr. Heartwood was looking more and more agitated. "The hotel hasn't been found by wolves yet. Why would they now be a threat? The wolves don't even frequent Fernwood Forest." But they have been seen nearby," stammered Gilles. "I heard a guest discussing—" "Enough!" bellowed Mr. Heartwood. "But you have to believe me," cried Mona. "If this is about Miss J, I thought we welcomed all guests here." "As we should," said Mr. Heartwood, his tone suddenly softening. "And from now on we will. I was concerned small guests might be in danger from large paws, but instead of taking the time to make proper accommodations, I was a fool and made a rule. That must change. No excuses." After a pause, he continued, more sternly now. "But there's another matter here, Miss Mouse. By leaving without speaking to me, you broke my trust and your pledge." I, stammered Mona, trying to explain. But the explanation came from Tilly. "It wasn't her fault," cried Tilly, leaping up and knocking over a bowl of honey. "It was mine." Everyone froze, even Mona. Tilly's tail twitched behind her head. "It was my fault Mona left. I tricked her. I said she had to, that she would be fired." "You did?" humped the Badger. "Please explain." "Indeed," said Mrs. Higgins, rubbing her nose furiously. "I'm sorry. I thought that sooner or later you would choose her over me," Tilly gulped. "Mona was doing so well. She soothed the skunks and the swallow and rescued us from the bear." "You did, dearie?" Miss Prickles looked over at Mona, impressed. Mona nodded, blushing. Tilly continued. "She did. She talked the bear into leaving. I knew but didn't say. She's a good maid, a better one than me. And if she says there are wolves, then we should believe her." Tilly's speech left the room silent, except for the plop, plop, plop of the honey spilling over the edge of the table. Mona couldn't believe it. She tried to catch Tilly's eye, but the squirrel didn't meet her gaze. At last Mr. Heartwood spoke, but it wasn't to Mona or to Tilly. It was up to the ceiling, as though he was speaking to the hotel itself. "So the wolves have found us at last." "No, they haven't," piped Mona. "Not yet. But they will. They know about our lights. They are watching the forest to see which tree gets lit up. Then they will come, unless we do something." "But what, dearie?" said Miss Prickles, whose quills were flared out, though her voice remained calm as always. "What can we possibly do?" Mona had no idea, but Mr. Heartwood did. "With no lit tree, there's nothing for them to see. We simply don't put up the lanterns." "But what about the party? The lighting of the hearth?" said Mrs. Higgins. "All this work. The guests are expecting—" "No fire," said Mr. Heartwood with a worried look. "The smoke will rise and catch the wolves' eyes." "What about the food?" said Miss Prickles. "My ginger cakes? My acorn souffle?" Mr. Heartwood looked increasingly troubled. "No feast either, I fear," he said, shaking his head. "The delicious smells might draw the wolves near." "So, no festival then, Mr. Heartwood?" said Mrs. Higgins, her nose redder than ever. "First the summer festivals, and now—" Mr. Higgins placed a comforting paw on hers, and she almost smiled. But then Mr. Heartwood said, "No festival. This is serious. Hurry, before they wake. Place notes under the doors of all the guests, informing them at once of the change in plans. Dear guest, we regret to inform you that the first snow festival has been cancelled. There will be a meeting in the ballroom this morning for any questions. The Heartwood management.